Hey, all you sucker MCs that ain't got nothing on me. I'm here like my boy Coco Bang. I got my drink in my cup, ready to start this video. And I want to give a disclaimer. This video is not going to be anything cute. It's not going to be anything, maybe not what you want to hear. It's not going to be positive. But it's not going to be negative either. This could be... No, this is just going to be the truth. Something that I love, I would consider myself a truth seeker. When I first peered into journalism and when I first found like love for truth and I started to seek it, it's truly exhausting because it is hidden. It's hidden. But I went through a lot of grievance, because the world in which I was taught, right? Like the world, I was going to say told. That's why I said it like that. I was going to say told, and I was going to say taught. But the world in which I knew was over, It was like everything that I thought was real wasn't, And I kind of had this revelation when I started looking into certain type of careers, right? As a writer. I was so infatuated with the idea of going to school, being a writer, and having a dream job. I truly believed that that was going to be the catalyst that was going to really offset a lot of things in my life. And I think for a lot of people, if you are here in this space, this video is really going to help you. But I really believe that becoming a writer and being validated, my work being validated in professional spaces was like, I made it. I did it. I did the damn thing, And I was so confident in that. Well, I get to these spaces and it wasn't about me. It was actually about the corporation. And I was a writer who essentially wrote for the corporation. And my job was to sound like a writer from the corporation, right? It wasn't about individuality. It wasn't about having your own voice. And a lot of times when you start talking about professionalism in terms of writing and corporate, in journalism specifically, it's not about the truth, right? It's about the audience. It's about the clicks and the views and things like that. There are a few publications that I still, ride hard for, like AP is a good one. I love The Atlantic. I actually really hope to write for The Atlantic one day. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, the rest of it is kind of crazy. New York Times, I think the Times, well, one, I want to say this. I think it's really cool. The founder of the Times is actually, actually lived in Cincinnati. When I find little nuggets like that, I think it's no coincidence, that this love for writing found me and I found it. And here we are. I thought that was pretty cool. But, and I don't know if they actually like lived in Cincinnati, but I know that they kind of like, he passed through. Okay. He passed through. He was here. Right. But anyway, so yeah, I remember being in my journalist class with my professor, and he just was like, everything that I was standing for was not going to be in alignment with anything that the field of journalism could offer me. And I remember at the time I asked him, I said, what about being an independent journalist? And he was like, yeah, you can do that, And that was a pretty tough place because I had always felt like the institutions had took so much from me. And I don't want to say this from like a me type of thing. And I'm kind of saying me as in like a narrative type of way, right? Telling the story. Like, I'm not saying this as in like, whoa, it's me. And like, I am just the, you know what I mean? So don't take that so literal. But I felt like the institutions took a lot from me. I felt like, I didn't have scholarships. I didn't even know anything about scholarships until I was about 25. I knew that they existed. There were some times when I tried to apply for scholarships, but I'm talking about, being a young girl, desiring to go to college. There was no one at my hand helping me write no essays and structure anything. I didn't even know where to even go to find forums. And I probably did, but I didn't apply for scholarships. I didn't think it was anything that I could really get. I would look at the requirements, and it was always something so crazy, like ridiculously high SAT score, things like that. So I never really put the work in. I'll just say that. So anyway, fast forward, I'm in school. I can't pay for this, So I'm frustrated. I feel angered by the system. I feel angered by my college because I felt like the college was so expensive and I felt like I got nothing out of the experience. I felt like I was in a institution where they were benefiting from me, but I wasn't benefiting from them. And I was at a crossroads because I felt like at the end of the day, the end goal is going to be what? I'm going to get this certificate and I'm going to have to go find a job. And you mean to tell me I'm not going to be able to write the things I want to write about? And, coming from being just a blogger, having a dream to say, yeah, I want to be a writer. That's my dream. But it was like, I had did everything on my own. So here I am, 25, back in the university. And I felt like I didn't know if I should take this path. I was like, man, should I finish school? Should I do this thing just to say that I did it? But at the end of the day, I know that my goal will always be some form of like independent, work. And the reason why I am kind of talking about this is because I do think this ties into a lot of my previous videos where I talk to you guys about education and the importance of education. I'm at a point now in my life where I think if you're going to go to the institution, make sure that it's going to benefit you, right? I was totally okay with having my YouTube channel, with having my podcast, with doing independent freelance work as a writer, because for me, it wasn't about the validation. It wasn't even about the money. Quite frankly, I don't think I've made anything from being a writer, maybe $10. Oh, I probably made a little bit more than $10. Let me not, but nothing crazy. But that wasn't the point, right? When people talk about that thing that you would do for free, this was my thing. And there was other, charitable, philanthropic things that I did in my community that I would do for free as well. But when it came to my bread and butter, when I'm dealing with these corporations, when you start talking about, being in alliance with, certain institutions that don't really care for you as a POC, I'm going to make sure I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get mine, So I was just like, I don't think this is making any sense, I wanted the skills. I will say I wanted the skills. I wanted to learn certain things. I had a photojournalism class that I really wanted to take, and I'm still up and up. I'm still figuring out, like, do I want to complete this degree? Because I just felt like I just didn't get anything out of the deal. And I honestly see this so commonly when you hear the rebuttals about why you shouldn't go to college. And I can honestly say I can hear them. Okay, I can hear them. I know you guys know I'm for education, but I can really heed to the cries of my brothers and sisters who have taken these paths and really pursued the thing that they love, and they're actually really good at it. And they take it to the institutions and they partner with these universities and they get these degrees and they are out of work. And it's because it wasn't really about free reign. It was always about you and your skills, right? At the time, I was at a crossroads, and this is what this video is going to be about. It's going to be about choices. But at the time, I was at a crossroads. I had the choice to, and this is going to sound crazy because you're going to be like, how the hell did you know that? But I did, call it insight, call it wisdom, call it God. But I was at a crossroads in my life. I knew that if I was going to pursue this collegiate path, this was going to be the next X amount of years of my life. I knew that it wasn't going to stop with getting my BA at my, I don't want to say local institution because it was definitely from an accredited university. But I knew that it wasn't going to stop at my BA. I knew that if I pursued collegiate studies, that this was not going to be the end, right? I knew it was going to be masters. I was even looking into PhD programs for writing, considering a profession as a professor. What does that look like? I'm looking at Nikki Giovanni, and I'm looking like, you know what I mean? Because I'm at this point where I'm like, I know if I choose this path, this is going to be a long path. I knew I was going to have to leave my city. And at the time I didn't have the job for that, but I knew that this was going to be for the long haul. I knew that there was going to be no more messing around, right? Like previously I've been in and out of college. I don't know what I want to do. I'm changing my mind. I'm doing all these things. But I knew if I had really committed myself to this path, my life would look different, but I wasn't sure if I was willing to put certain things on the line. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, which is not going to be the most positive video. Like, it's not going to be the most happy-go-lucky type of stuff you want to hear because it's not realistic, right? So you're going to say, how did I know that, right? And I want to first talk about the concept of settling, right? We like to believe that life is this beautiful, bountiful, perfect picture. And we like to believe that we are all presented with opportunities that are just so grand that you cannot ignore them. And there is no such thing as a lesser evil. And we like to believe that everything is amazing, and you don't really have to make hard choices. We don't believe in a life of sacrifices until there is somebody who is standing on a podium giving a speech talking about theirs. Then we slightly heed the sacrifices, but we go back in our own lives and we don't really account for the sacrifices we've had to make or are going to have to make, right? So when you talk about this idea of settling, I don't really believe in settling. And the reason why I say I don't believe in settling is because I think that you have a reality. And then I think you have an expectation that is placed on you from other people that exist outside of your reality, right? People will easily tell you, you settled for this or you settled for that, but they weren't there when you had to make really hard choices, right? And so fast forward, I had to really choose whether or not it was going to be, I'm going to go to school for the rest of my life because I knew this is what this was. I'm not going to make any money with a BA. I was already in my city. I had did the internships within the local, whatever, my city's red state, very conservative. Okay, I have worked with these magazines. It's all white staff. They're looking at you like you are a booger on the freaking salad, plate when you walk into the cafeteria. It wasn't progressive. It wasn't anything that was really going to be sustainable. And a lot of times we don't really like to hear these things because it goes against, again, this perfect picture, this thing of like, well, no, you were in the room. You could have made something happen or you could have done something, right? It goes against the bootstrapping narratives that we love to cling to, okay? So I had to choose whether or not I really wanted to have a family or if I wanted to go to school for the rest of my life. And prior to me coming to this realization was when I realized that the women who had come before me, who did choose a certain thing, did not have everything. And to me, I wanted a family. And I know this is going to be like, girl, what? Like, you totally did not have to do that, like, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not true. It's not true, right? Because that's the thing. It's like we want fantasy. We want this thing that doesn't exist, right? These women who I would study, I would either look at their content that they would share, the videos that they would watch, or even just observe them in my real lives, had very real grievances about not being able to have a family. And this is something else we're going to talk about too, especially from the Black woman's perspective. But they had real grievances about that. And I had to really ask myself, do you want this or do you want that? Because you're not going to get it all. And I remember hearing Michelle Obama say, you don't get it all, at least not right now, right? But I just think for myself, I couldn't live my life never having a family, And everyone's like, yeah, well, you could start a family later. But again, this goes back to the over-sensationalization of exceptionalism, right? You hear about Kourtney Kardashian, who's a millionaire several times over, who just had had another child with her boyfriend. She's 44, right? You hear about Janet Jackson. She's 50. Look, she can do it. You can do it. Well, I've been believing those stories ever since I was a little girl. And the things that, I've seen, from young girls doing speeches on podiums and all these different things, when I'm just this young girl who is dealing with a very difficult and tumultuous childhood, those things couldn't have possibly been done by me, right? And so this is why I just said I don't really believe in the concept of settling, because I think that you are presented with choices in your life and you have to make the lesser evil choice. You have to do what's best for you at the time in which you do what's best for you, right? Do I think I'm beautiful? I'm not too hard on the eyes, Do I think I could have met someone at a later date in my life? Yes. But work would then be my priority. The stakes are a lot higher when you invest so much into a thing, right? When you're building a thing. And I think this is also a really complex issue that we like to simplify and we like to commodify for people to understand, right? the stakes are really high when you invest in a career. There's a lot on the line there. For me, that would have looked like no longer having a YouTube channel. I was well aware of like corporate phishing. I was well aware of corporate, and LinkedIn and things like that, taking a look at your profile, finding your name, right? I was well aware of the possibilities of like losing your job for speaking about racism, speaking about anything that just would offend anybody who, could possibly find offense in what you're saying, right? Like, I wasn't naive to that. And that would have meant sweeping my entire everything. That would have meant sweeping my entire, like, portfolio and really cleaning up the verbiage, right? And that to me no longer felt like freedom. That was no longer why I became a writer. That was my dream. And so I had to ask myself, like, is that something that I want, right? I'm a little bit older now. I think I have a more assured sense of self. I think my interests have changed. So maybe things could have been different, but I just know too well the reality. And I also knew what was going to be possible for me if I made a different choice. And I know people are going to be like, there's just no way you could have known that. But no, there is. And I think that this is what we talk about. We love empowering statements. We love to feel motivated. And it's this thing of like taking control of your life. I think when you start to take control of your life and you start to be responsible for your life, you start to weigh the cons. I don't want to say consequences, but you start to weigh your choices, right? Because everything costs. You don't just get something for nothing. And that is way too real for a lot of people. That's too much, right? That is too much. Okay. And so when I heard about, women having children at 37, things like that, I personally didn't want to risk it. I knew I could not live my life and never have children. I just knew that was never going to be the choice for me. And I know you're going to be like, how did you know that? Well, it's because it's the truth, And what's really unfortunate is that you hear these women's stories and they come out and they talk about how they're struggling with fertility, how they're over a certain age, they haven't met anyone. And we dismiss it like, oh, this is just her. She's just one person, right? Our brains, especially at this point in time, are so conditioned to find so much disgust with truth and reality that we don't even gravitate towards it. We can't even possibly sympathize or empathize with it or connect it to our real lives, right? We look at it like, this is not going to happen to me, right? This is not my life, when it very much is. Right? Women were foregoing having children and families because women had to survive, right? Men were no longer providing for women. Women were no longer seen as these beings that needed protection. And, men were no longer required to share their resources with women, right? So women were at a very different place, right? Educational opportunities, things like that were opening up. Women were finally in a place where they could provide for themselves. I mean, women still make less than men, but it's like women were able to provide for themselves, So women were taking advantage of those opportunities. And a lot of these women were foregoing families and having children and getting married because they knew the consequence of the choice. If that wasn't the case, wouldn't they be saying, let's do it all, let's have it all, you know what I mean? No. They're not saying that because there are trade-offs in life. So maybe I did settle for my mediocre career, but there's something so empowering and there's something so freeing in coming on here and sharing the things that I love and reading so many books that I've read and sharing what it is that I know and, people relating to some of the content that I create. I think it's great, When I look back, I can't say that this is where I thought I would be. I remember there was a point in time I couldn't even come on this video and talk to you guys about anything. I was so nervous, and even still, I listen to myself, my articulation, everything is growing. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But in life, I believe that there are choices. Does that mean that I'm giving up? No. I'm actually in a completely different career field, which for me, it's good enough. Right. And I don't want to say good enough. Like it's just, come on now, hold on. This doesn't mean I'm not trying. Right. But it means that I'm in a completely different career field that I never thought I would be in. But I'm very I like what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm content with where I'm at and what I'm doing. And it works for me because I realize that I don't think I ever want to have a career in journalism, because it'll never be how I envision it in my mind unless I do it myself. Unless I bring the vision that I have and I bring that into my reality. And that's the truth, right? So when you think about choices in life, there are a lot of hard choices. You know, we look down on single mothers, we look down on women who have children at younger ages, but at the same time, we like to ignore the many women who will never have children, who desire to have children in their lifetime, right? We look down on the many women who are struggling with infertility, who are not content creators, who are not women who have the means or the resources to be freezing nobody's eggs, okay, to be to be doing anything like that, right? We look down on the neighbors and the older women who live across from us because we think that they just made poor choices, when the truth is that they just made choices, you know? And at the time, there are certain things that are more important than other things. We all have different values, but something that's going to remain the constant is like, you just don't get everything. You know, that's just not how life works. Do I think that it's different for men? I do, because I think that men are not pigeonholed into that. Men don't really have reproductive issues, things like that. Well, they might have today because, you know, we just got a lot of craziness going on. We don't know what the future will hold. But nonetheless, it's still very highly unlikely, right? Men are not socially conditioned or held responsible for sustaining, protecting, nurturing, and providing for their families. So there's really no social consequence for men within the patriarchy. So men they're not faced with those choices. Women are, right? And so, yeah, there's that. Men can marry, date, have children, do whatever at any age and stage, and they can still have their careers. Women, there's a trade-off, right? And I don't think that there's a lesser evil. I just think that there's more so like choices, right? I don't think that the woman who chose to have a family or the woman who chose to have a career is worse off. I don't think like that. I don't think it's that simple, you know? And are there women who have the best of both worlds and doing everything? I don't know. You know, I don't know. We'll report back. But I think in life there are choices, and I just don't think that anyone gets everything. And one thing I've learned is to really be grateful for your lot, you know, in your life. And if you would live your life like, you know that everything that you do has a cost, not brinking on paranoia, not brinking on, you know, being anxiety stricken, right? Not overthinking, but just living your life with a conscious awareness that that's not the reality. I think you won't feel like a victim at the end of your life. I think you will be able to say, I did everything that I wanted to do with the best of whatever it is that I had, and I made the best choices for me, and it worked for me at the time. You know, you'll live and you learn, and you'll just find a sense of gratitude for where you are in your life. Like I said, I mocked my little mediocre writing career, but I was very grateful because I can honestly say I pursued that dream, right? I have written books. I am literally writing to this day. I've grown so much as a writer. I literally started off as just a blogger sharing what I ate for breakfast, you know? I've built websites. Like, I feel so proud of myself, right? Because it's one of those things to where I will never live my life, even though I didn't get the career that I wanted as a writer. Like, I didn't get the desk, you know, off to the corner working at the New York Times, but I can honestly live my life and I can be at peace with everything, because it's like I pursued my dreams as a writer. I wanted to be a writer. And that's literally what I did, and that's what I still do to this day. And it's a big part of me. I really love what it is that I do. I love education. I love learning. I love teaching, all those things. So very grateful, you know, very grateful for my outlet. And so it works for me. You know, it builds me, it strengthens me in a lot of different ways. And so it works for me. But, and I think for me personally, I think there's really something about time, and I think there's something about like timing, because I don't know, you guys, I think you can make money at any age, right? I think you make more money as you get older, But I think the money comes. I do. I really believe that. I believe if you're hardworking, if you're trying, you know what I mean? If you're making good choices in terms of like what field you're going in, if you're like, for example, me realizing like, okay, this might be the thing that I do, just, this is my thing. But I'm not sure if I would go to school for this. You know what I mean? Like me making that decision. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I think by making good choices financially and learning about finances, I think you can get it together. But yeah, I just sit here today and I think about, because I got an email from someone who was talking about their fertility and stuff. And I just don't believe that everyone gets everything, but I do believe that we can be grateful, right? The person who sent this out is doing amazing in her career. I mean, it's so cool. I think she is so beautiful. She's like super awesome, super dope. Everything that she, you know what I mean? Like, just seriously, everything she touches, pure gold. Okay. On top of that, she's incredibly gorgeous. And it's just like, I don't know, of course we can always empathize with people. We don't ever want to look at people and be like, oh my God, you have this, and this. No. But I've learned to see myself like that. When I find myself, and I hope that this will help anybody who's in this space, women specifically. I hope that you guys are listening, but it's like, I hope that this will help you, because I think a lot of times, it's easy to look at somebody else's life and be like, oh, I wish I had done X, Y, and Z. And even if you didn't make a conscious decision to start a family or whatever the case may be, you can still be grateful for that, because that's not something that's afforded to a lot of people. And I didn't really realize that in my own life until I started reading. I started opening my mind to other people's experiences, right? Especially today with our algorithms, we have a tendency just naturally, but even now socially with our social media being online, we're kind of forced into like algorithmic flows where we're only in line with people who think like us and who have the same experiences as us. But if you really take the time to listen to people, meet them in your real life. I've come across stories just from reading nonfiction. But there are people who have different experiences than you, and as you get older, and as I've gotten older, one thing I've learned, and you talk about contentment, is like, I've just learned that I don't know. I just realized that like I'm very blessed. There are a lot of people who don't have certain things, right? And so just do what you will with that. I know motherhood, especially Black motherhood, is something we have to fight for. I think it's also something that it gets such a bad rep. I think there's a lot of negative connotation around Black womanhood and motherhood specifically. But it's a blessing. It's a blessing. And continue to take care of yourself. When we start talking about, striving for lofty goals and things like that, sometimes you have to just take it day by day. Sometimes you have to just, create something because you want to create it, because you're a woman, because you're creative, because it's fun. I personally don't put too much stock into like my writing, and I never really have, even when I was a podcaster. The reason being is because I've always just kind of felt like there was a sense of desperation that would come about. And I no longer love the work. When I tried to monetize my podcast, I felt overwhelmed by just wanting to put it in people's faces because I just wanted views, or I just wanted listeners, or whatever the case may be. I find so much more joy in creating just because I feel like creating a video, and it's not to say you can't take you shouldn't pursue things if opportunities present themselves, sure. But one thing I've learned about opportunities, and I'm wrapping up, but one thing I've learned about opportunities is that they're always coming and going, and you never really want to move from a place of scarcity where you feel like you have to just do something because you just have to do it. You know what I mean? It's okay to take your time. It's okay to think about things strategically, and it's okay to have a plan. It's okay to be like, what, I'm going to do this next year. And even if I don't do this next year, but I do this next spring. Okay. And I would say next year, but like beginning of the year, you know what I mean? Like, even if it happens in the spring, even if it happens in the fall, like, it's okay to take your time. One thing that's very clear is time is always passing. And I know we say life is short, but I like to believe that life is actually pretty long. And I think if you make good choices and you take your time and you prioritize things like love, and you do what matters for you, what you value, okay? And you make good choices, and you learn about money if you don't come from a financial background, and you learn how to kind of manage with what you got, right? Like, for example, I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm going to cook this for breakfast and I'm going to cook that for breakfast. And then I'm like, no, because I'm tired of going to the freaking grocery store. I've been cashing out. I literally went to the grocery store, y'all, to get some soup. This is just a sidebar. I went to the grocery store to get some soup and like garlic bread, you know, some cheesy bread. And it was like $76. It was $76. And I think I got like some juice, you know, just little things. And I was so outdone. So everything in the grocery store, think in tens, think in terms of tens. But anyway, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, if you just kind of just learn to be grateful for what you got and do the best you can, you know, as I get older, and I'm wrapping up, I realize that, you know, there's a lot in life you just can't control. Yeah, there's a lot in life you can't control. Things are going to be happening. Situations are going to come your way. It's going to be really tough sometimes. You know, things it may not get better for a while, but they're going to get better eventually, you know, or you're going to get better, you know. And I don't know, y'all, like, I feel like I just get stronger, and I just encourage that for you all. If you are somebody who's in a rut and you're just kind of feeling down and out about certain things, like, life just gets better. You know, you get better, life gets better, and it all works out. So that's the truth about choices. I kind of feel like I definitely needed more of a script or something to do this video, because it was definitely all over the place. But, and don't just take that choice as like, you know, my story, you know, me talking about women and fertility specifically in this video. Don't take that as like, oh, this is what this is about. No, apply this to your life for real, right? You can be a guy. You have a woman, you really love her. You're like, this is it. This is, you know, but then you're like, hey, I'm not where I want to be. I got to leave her. You know, you're taking a chance. You found something real. You found something that was for real. And it's like, you take a chance. And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to go pursue this thing. And you may never get that again. But that was the trade-off. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think we like to think of life as a constant accumulation. But I think life is about loss. I think life is about loss. Love and loss, right? So I don't know. I don't think I'm trying to avoid anybody, help anybody avoid pain or anything like that. But I will say that, like, just be mindful, you know, and be grateful for your life, you know, wherever you are. You got to learn. You got to try things. And when I mean learn, something about just reading books, for me personally, gives me ideas to do things. You know, because we're kind of in a place today, especially when you talk about like monetary gains and things like that. Everything is so narrow-minded, right? Everybody's like, go to marketing, go into tech, and it's just like, no, don't do that. Find something else to do. You know what I mean? So I just think, you know, if you're worried about finances, I think it just takes knowledge, you know? Yeah, because you have to know like what decisions to make. And you have to learn, and it's kind of boring. It's not really interesting, but you have to learn. You have to grow. You have to learn. So, yeah, and that takes time, and that takes consecration. You can't listen to what everybody else is saying and what everybody else is doing, because yeah, you know, people are like, yeah, I graduated with a marketing degree. Doing what? Like, what is a marketing degree? You know, and I'm not here to talk about anybody's degrees, but no, genuinely, I really want to know. Like, what are you going to do with a marketing degree? What would make someone say, I'm going into marketing? Like, did you want to write ads for Pepsi? Like, did you want to be a graphic designer for Pepsi? Like, what was it? That doesn't make any sense. But you can say the same about journalism. Probably not, but like, you know. So, anyway, I think money flows where there is love. Where there is God, where there's love, and where there's authenticity. Peace.